Hello and welcome back to Astral Doorway. My name is Gene, and as many of you know, I've had over 11 years of intense practice of astral projection. I consider that quite a small amount of time when compared to the enormity and gravity of what astral projection actually entails. And I've had many experiences, some of which I choose not to share because they're either too complex or personal or might be difficult for a wider audience to understand. And today I want to share kind of one of those types of experiences, this one being where I went to the lower astral and essentially infiltrated some kind of negative group's base, you could say. I had this experience some years ago, and one of the reasons I want to share it is because still to this day it plays on my mind, and I think that's because I never really came to fully understand what really happened or why it happened. So, if any of you have any kinds of insights or interpretations as to what you think happened as you listen to me describe it, I'd be very interested to read your comments down below, as I always do. A quick note on my more personal life situation. I'm moving countries yet again soon to begin making these episodes and writing books full time. A couple of you have raised your pledges on Patreon after hearing about this in our private Discord group. So thank you. And if you want to help support the work I do, then just follow the Patreon link in the description below. It is appreciated as I won't be in the best financial situation, but regardless, for me, it's absolutely worth it as there's nothing more I love than helping everyone on this path of awakening together. I did say on Patreon, if I reached a certain amount, I would go full time. But now I've come to realize it's best for me to just do it anyway, as there's really nothing more worth doing, frankly. So I'm really looking forward to having the time to give you a lot of in-depth and useful information that I've planned for quite a long time, and I've not really had the time to do it. So now I will in the near future, in a couple of months. So to get into this peculiar experience I had, uh, this was a spontaneous projection where I found myself in the lower astral, but not too much of a lower dimension. It was more like a non physical counterpart of Earth, just a little lower. The area I was in was very much like a normal town street on Earth, yet it had this in between twilight feel where the atmosphere and energy wasn't quite the normal physical plane, yet it wasn't quite the normal full experience of the dark lower astral region. There was an ambient light coming from the sky with mediocre concrete buildings all around. I was led to a particular location by someone who was obviously my guide for this experience. For one reason or another, I was taken there and awakened there because he or someone wanted to show me this experience. And so this guide was just a little taller than myself. He had blonde, short hair, smartly dressed, and was very focused and serious during this entire experience. He had a purpose. he was holding a silver metal briefcase. There was almost no small talk. He was just focused on a particular objective. We were clearly going toward a destination. So we walked through these town streets until we reached the end of a block with a shore overlooking a beach. It wasn't a type of relaxing postcard beach, but it was bleak and not really attractive. But on the beach, at the start of the shore, was this two-story concrete building. And the guide stopped and he looked at me and said, "We're going to go inside there and I'm going to show you how we deal with specific groups." I immediately knew there was going to be some negative beings in there, but I had no idea what kind or what we were going to actually do. But I had faith in this guide. He seemed reliable and strong, and so, I was following him. So, as me, him, and the silver briefcase that he was holding proceeded to go into the building, I was almost very startled for a second as I see about a dozen gruesome looking people inside. These people, if you can call them that, were almost like typical looking zombies, but a bit less bloody, and they seemed a bit more awake, like they had a purpose. Usually, if I found myself in a crowd of such lower negative beings, I would take some cover or hide. But then I realized I was safe because all of them were completely frozen, as if some kind of power had frozen time for them somehow. They looked like they were in the middle of doing something and, they were suddenly just paused. Clearly, my guide had something to do with that, as, while I'm looking in wonder at these frozen beings, he's at the end of the room signaling me to hurry up and follow him up the stairs. After some time of just looking at these beings close up, which was a very strange, almost creepy sensation, I go ahead and follow my guide up the stairs in, complete confusion as to what's going on. But my curiosity kept me going. And when I got to the top of the stairs, it was a very similar situation. About another dozen of these beings in this large room in this building, all paused in their tracks. But upstairs was clearly where the bosses were, so to speak, where the commander was at the end of the room, and there was a sort of throne seat, and a few of them had these old, tattered military uniforms on, and the captain or sergeant, whatever you want to call him, was stood up next to his boss seat. And I was just looking around the room. There was a lot of paper on the walls, blueprints on tables, drawing boards all around. This group was clearly organized and planning something or multiple things. Uh, it was like they were planning some kind of war, or perhaps they were just simple kind of demon entities who had tasks to do in the astral. I have really no idea, but I knew that they were essentially bad, right? Anyway, my guide goes over to the boss's seat area and places down the silver briefcase on the floor that he had the whole time, and he opens it. And what I saw inside was just this orb of light. which I immediately understood was essentially a bomb. Not a terrorist kind of bomb like in the physical, but more like something that will be an explosion of purification. Still a sort of destruction, but purification. And once that was set up, we both calmly walked outside. We gained some distance and then just stood and watched the building. And a few seconds later, as expected, there was an explosion, but not like one in the physical, but instead the atmosphere all around the building sort of phased powerfully with an instance of white fire coming out through the windows and just swirling in the air. In that moment, I knew, I was in the astral. I sensed that these beings were just gone. They vanished from that building. I didn't know whether they were actually permanently destroyed or whether they were sent somewhere else, but I did know that they had vanished, and I had a sense of relief that I didn't quite understand, or a sense of accomplishment. I knew it was a good thing, whatever the guide did, as mysterious as it all seemed. After the explosion, he just looked at me with this knowing look and serious expression and said, "They're gone. It's done." And I should have asked questions, but from what I recall, I must have had this blank expression on my face while I was trying to process all of this. And of course, that's when I woke up and immediately jotted everything down in my journal. So, my instincts tell me that these were perhaps not ordinary devolved people, but perhaps created entities. One reason that I think that is because they seemed very easy to control, because the guide or whatever higher power, paused them in time, but I have no idea where that source of power came from, that paused everything in the building. So it's just my speculation that they were created entities or perhaps hypnotized entities. I don't know. I really have no idea what kind of forces I was dealing with, both from the side of the guide, the angel or astral helper or whatever he was, and also from the side of these perhaps created entities, or what they did to deserve this kind of infiltration by this guide. I'm sure it was for some kind of ill intent that they had set up or something. I assume that they were up to, something malicious, something that broke some form of universal law. By universal law, I mean that, the universe is nature, and there are things that go against nature. For example, killing or controlling the free will of others. But in certain astral dimensions, this can be more complex, like mass hypnosis of people. You know, just as there is conflict within each of us, there is also this kind of spiritual war in the astral of good and bad. And there's this struggle to guide people out of this circle of conflict. In the astral, there seems to be some flexibility in terms of good and bad things that can happen. But when certain beings or groups go too far, there is usually some kind of decision or greater force to apply some equilibrium. So, yes, I thought I'd just share this experience that you might find interesting and you can share your thoughts and opinions below, as I know I've shared experiences before and I wasn't exactly sure about some specific details, but later on I found some really great insights from some of you who are a little more interested in certain secret or cult groups or things like that. Maybe you've seen someone who's had similar experiences. Who knows? Well, a quick one today. Thank you, everyone. Check out my community page for a sneak peek at just a few things coming on the channel in the near future when I have time very soon. Be sure to be subscribed if you like what is listed there. And a quick shout out to Wef, Molly, Mikey, and Rokas, who all joined the Patreon group this week. Looking forward to having you all in the Discord group to discuss all these matters more deeply. This is Gene, and I'll see you on the next episode.